Florence. The name itself breathes history. It conjures images of art, genius, and a revolution in human thought. From above, the city unfolds like a masterpiece. A sea of terracotta roofs is punctuated by the monumental dome of its cathedral. The Arno River flows slowly, a silver ribbon winding through centuries of stone and story. This is not just a city, it is a living museum. Every street, every piazza, every building holds a piece of a grand puzzle. It is a place where the past is not just remembered, it is felt in the very air you breathe. A constant and powerful presence that shapes the experience of walking its ancient lanes. We often think of Florence through its most famous symbols. There is the magnificent Duomo, Filippo Brunelleschi's architectural marvel. It dominates the skyline, a testament to human ambition and faith. Then there is the Ponte Vecchio, the old bridge. It is lined with shops that glitter with gold, just as they have for hundreds of years. This bridge has survived floods and wars, a symbol of Florence's resilience. Yet, to truly understand Florence, we must look beyond these grand monuments. We must venture into the narrow alleyways and shadowed courtyards. The city's identity was not just built by architects and artists, it was also shaped by power, ambition, and secrets. The very layout of the streets tells a story of rival families, of political intrigue, and of a society undergoing a radical transformation. This documentary will explore how the incredible flowering of art was intertwined with the ruthless pursuit of power. It will show how this dynamic forged the city we see today, a place where beauty and influence are forever locked in an elegant embrace. Our journey will peel back the layers of this incredible city. We will start with the grand and the famous, but we will soon dive into the hidden corners. We will follow the threads that connect the masterpieces in the Uffizi Gallery to the quiet plaques on a forgotten wall. This is a story about how a city becomes a legend. It's a story of how art gave a voice to power, how power funded art, and how the streets themselves became the stage for this epic drama. We will discover that in Florence, history is not confined to books, it is etched into the very stones beneath our feet. At the center of Florence's story is one family, the Medici. Their name is synonymous with the Renaissance itself. They were bankers who became one of the most powerful dynasties in Europe, but their power did not come from armies or crowns, at least not at first. It came from money. It came from influence. It came from an extraordinary vision for their city. They understood that art was not just decoration, it was a tool. It was a way to project power. It was a way to win the hearts of the people. It was a way to create a legacy that would outlast them all. Their influence is a golden thread woven throughout the fabric of Florence. This journey will follow that Medici thread. We will see how their patronage transformed Florence from a medieval city into the cradle of the Renaissance. They sponsored the geniuses we still revere today. Michelangelo, Donatello, Botticelli. They commissioned the palaces that line the city's streets. They commissioned the artworks that fill its museums, but their influence was more subtle than just grand commissions. Every David and Venus was also a political statement. We promise to show you the Florence that most visitors miss. Beyond the magnificent facades of the Pitti Palace or the Uffizi Gallery, there are stories hidden in plain sight. We will walk the very streets where political conspiracies were hatched and where artistic rivalries played out. We will find the secret corridors used by dukes, and the humble homes of the artisans who made their visions a reality. These are the streets that tell secrets. They speak of love, betrayal, and the everyday lives of the people who walked them 500 years ago. They reveal a more intimate human side to this grand historical epic. Prepare to see Florence not as a static collection of art and architecture, but as a dynamic stage. It is a place where history is an active participant in the present. We will uncover the hidden symbols, decode the architectural language, and listen to the whispers of the past. By the end of our journey, you will understand that Florence's true secret is this. Its art, its power, and its streets are all part of the same inseparable story. A story that continues to unfold, even today, for those who know where to look and how to listen. To understand the miracle of the Renaissance, we must first travel back in time. Imagine Florence in the late 14th and early 15th centuries. This was not yet the gleaming city of marble and masterpieces we know today. It was a bustling, crowded, and often chaotic medieval city. Tall, defensive towers, built by rival families, looming over narrow, winding streets. It was a city still bearing the scars of the Black Death, but beneath this gritty surface, something was stirring. A new energy was coursing through its veins, fueled by commerce, banking, and a fierce sense of independence. Florence was a republic, citizens who saw themselves as heirs to ancient Rome, a city built on wool and on money. Powerful guilds, associations of merchants, and craftsmen controlled economy and politics. Florentine bankers developed sophisticated financial tools. Florence became the financial capital of Europe. The Florentine florin, a gold coin, was the trusted international currency. This immense wealth created a new class of patrons, not kings, not emperors, but citizen merchants. They had money to spend, and a desire to see their city and themselves reflected in glory. They began to look for new ways to express pride and piety, moving away from the dark, heavy Gothic past. The seeds of the Renaissance were sown in competition, and in civic pride, families competed for influence, in council chambers, by commissioning grander chapels, and more beautiful altarpieces. Guilds competed to sponsor the most impressive public art. This competitive spirit pushed artists to innovate. Patrons demanded something new, something that captured the dynamic spirit of the age, art that was rational, human-centric, and clear. A new age of artistic and intellectual discovery was about to dawn. Out of this cultural soup, the Renaissance was born. Florence was a pressure cooker of ideas. Scholars rediscovered the lost texts of ancient Greece and Rome, unearthing philosophy, science, and art that celebrated human potential. This movement, humanism, provided the philosophical backbone. Artists became intellectuals and innovators, ready to break the old rules, to create a new vision that would forever change Western art and define Florence. The new spirit of the age demanded a new architectural language. The Florentines grew tired of the Gothic style soaring, mystical, sometimes chaotic. They yearned for something different. They wanted buildings that spoke of order, reason, and human intellect. They found their inspiration in the ruins of ancient Rome. Architects like Filippo Brunelleschi and Leon Battista Alberti traveled to the Eternal City. They meticulously studied the surviving structures of the Roman Empire. They measured the columns, arches, and domes. They sought to understand the principles of harmony and proportion that had guided the ancient builders. They were not just copying, they were learning a lost language. This rediscovery led to a revolution in design. The core principles of Renaissance architecture were symmetry, proportion, and perspective. Buildings were designed to be understood by the human mind. Facades were organized with mathematical precision. Columns, arches, and triangular pediments. Spaces were designed to feel balanced and harmonious, creating a sense of calm and order. This was a radical departure from the medieval mindset. It placed humanity, not just God, at the center of the universe. Architecture became a reflection of human reason and our ability to shape our own environment with logic and beauty. It was a bold and optimistic statement. Perhaps the most significant innovation was the codification of linear perspective. While painters had been experimenting with creating the illusion of depth, it was Brunelleschi who is credited with demonstrating its mathematical principles. This discovery electrified the artistic community. Suddenly, artists had a reliable, scientific method for creating a convincing three-dimensional space on a two-dimensional surface. This wasn't just a technical trick, it fundamentally changed how people saw the world. It allowed artists to create rational, believable scenes, making religious stories more immediate and human. It organized the world into a logical, measurable space that the viewer could enter and understand. These new ideas were put into practice all over Florence. We see them in the graceful arches of the Ospedale degli Innocenti, a public orphanage designed by Brunelleschi. It is often called the first true Renaissance building. Its elegant loggia, with its perfect semicircular arches and serene proportions, represented a complete break with the past. We see it in the clean, geometric lines of the Pazzi Chapel and the rational layout of the Church of San Lorenzo. This new style was more than just an aesthetic choice, it was a political and philosophical statement. It was the style of the new Florentine Republic, ordered, intelligent, and confident in its own power. Civic pride, divine ambition. Nowhere is this blend of civic pride and artistic innovation more visible than in the story of Florence's cathedral, Santa Maria del Fiore. For over a century, the cathedral stood incomplete. A massive hole gaped in its roof, an open challenge to the city's ambition. The octagonal opening was simply too wide to be covered using traditional building methods. It was a source of civic embarrassment. The city needed a hero with the genius and audacity to solve an engineering problem that had stumped Europe's best minds. That hero was Filippo Brunelleschi. His solution was not just an architectural feat, it was a defining moment for Florence and the Renaissance. Brunelleschi proposed a radical plan. A double-shelled dome built without massive wooden scaffolding. He designed special cranes and hoists to lift heavy sandstone and marble blocks hundreds of feet into the air. The construction became a public spectacle, a symbol of Florentine ingenuity. The dome rose slowly, brick by brick. When it was finally crowned with its lantern in 1436, it transformed the city. It became a powerful symbol of what humans could achieve through reason, creativity, and perseverance. It dominated the skyline, announcing Florence as a city of giants. The Duomo was the most prominent of many public projects reshaping the city. Powerful guilds sponsored competitions for major public commissions. One of the most famous was the 1401 competition for new bronze doors at the baptistery. This artistic duel pitted the young Lorenzo Ghiberti against Brunelleschi. Ghiberti's victory launched his career and produced the doors Michelangelo called the Gates of Paradise. Competitions fostered fierce rivalry, pushing artists to new technical and creative heights. Public art was the central stage for artistic life. Civic identity and artistic creation formed the engine of the Florentine Renaissance. The city's government and guilds treated art as public discourse. Statues placed in public squares, Donatello's sculptures for Orson Michele, were not mere decorations. They reminded citizens of values, patron saints, and republican ideals. They told of a community investing public wealth in a beautiful, inspiring public realm. That shared belief laid the foundation for the Golden Age to follow. The story of Renaissance Florence cannot be told without the story of the Medici. They were the puppet masters, the hidden power behind the city's Golden Age. Their rise began not with swords and armies, but with numbers and ledgers. Originating as wool merchants from the countryside, the family's fortunes truly began with Giovanni di Bicci de' Medici in the late 14th century. He established the Medici Bank, which, through shrewd investments and political acumen, became the most powerful financial institution in Europe. They were the Pope's bankers, a position that brought them immense wealth and unparalleled influence, allowing them to pull strings across the continent from their headquarters in Florence. Giovanni's son, Cosimo the Elder, inherited this financial empire and perfected the art of wielding power from the shadows. In a republic that was fiercely suspicious of any single ruler, Cosimo never held a permanent high office. He maintained the illusion of being just another private citizen, yet through his vast network of financial patronage, lending money to supporters and ruining his enemies, he controlled the city's political machinery. He was a master of quiet influence, placing his allies in key government positions and ensuring that the republic's decisions aligned with his own interests. He was the de facto Prince of Florence, ruling not by decree, but by debt and diplomacy. Cosimo understood something profound about the Florentine psyche. They valued beauty and civic glory as much as they valued liberty. He realized that art and architecture were not mere extravagances, they were powerful tools for winning the hearts and minds of the populace. By becoming the city's greatest patron of the arts, he could align his family's name with Florence's own cultural ascendancy. He sponsored artists like the sculptor Donatello and the architect Michelangelo. He poured his personal fortune into public works, funding the rebuilding of the San Marco monastery and contributing to the completion of the Duomo. This strategy was revolutionary. While other wealthy families built tall, defensive towers to project their strength, Cosimo built libraries, churches, and commissioned beautiful art. His power was softer, more pervasive, and ultimately, more enduring. He presented his patronage as a gift to the city, an act of civic piety and generosity. But every fresco, every sculpture, every building funded by Medici gold served a dual purpose. It beautified Florence while simultaneously cementing the Medici as the indispensable guardians of its culture and prosperity. They were no longer just bankers, they were becoming the very embodiment of the Florentine Renaissance, a dynasty forged in gold and marble. Patronage as a political weapon. Under the Medici, art patronage evolved from a simple act of piety or civic duty into a sophisticated and highly effective political weapon. Cosimo's grandson, Lorenzo de' Medici, known as Il Magnifico or the Magnificent, elevated this practice to an art form in itself. Lorenzo was not a banker at heart. He was a poet, a scholar, a brilliant diplomat. He understood the intricate chessboard of Italian politics, and that cultural prestige was as valuable as a mercenary army. By turning Florence into the undisputed cultural capital of the world, he enhanced his own status and ensured the security of his city-state. His court became a magnet for the greatest minds of the age. Lorenzo used artists like ambassadors. He would strategically commission works from Florentine masters like Botticelli, Ghirlandaio, Verrocchio. He then sent them to work for rulers in Naples, Milan, and the Vatican in Rome. This artistic diplomacy served multiple purposes. It spread the fame of Florentine art across Italy, reinforcing the city's cultural superiority. It created a network of goodwill and obligation, as other powerful figures became indebted to Lorenzo for access to his stable of artists. A well-placed painting could smooth a political dispute or seal an alliance. Art became a currency of international relations, and Lorenzo was its master broker. Commissions were often laden with political symbolism. Paintings about classical mythology or religious stories were frequently encoded with Medici propaganda. In Botticelli's Primavera and Palace and the Centaur, scholars read allegories celebrating Lorenzo's wisdom and his power to bring peace and prosperity to Florence. The Medici were often painted directly into religious scenes, as wise men or saints, collapsing the distance between earthly power and divine authority. This was not subtle, it was a clear message to Florence. The Medici were chosen by God to lead. The strategy reached its zenith in the public sphere. The Medici commissioned sculptures for public piazzas and funded architectural projects for all citizens. Donatello's bronze David, the first freestanding male nude since antiquity, was displayed in the Medici Palace courtyard. It symbolized Florence, the young underdog beating the giant, and tied that victory directly to the Medici. Through this relentless campaign of patronage, the Medici rewrote the city's narrative, intertwining their destiny with Florence's, until one could not be imagined without the other. The Medici did not just fill Florence with art, they fundamentally reshaped the city's urban fabric to reflect their power. Their influence is written in stone across the city, most notably in the form of their family palaces. In the 1440s, Cosimo de' Medici commissioned Michelangelo to build the Palazzo Medici. This building had to perform a delicate balancing act. It needed to be grand enough to project wealth and status, but not so ostentatious as to provoke envy or alarm Republican sensibilities. The result was a masterpiece of political architecture. The palace's exterior is a study in calculated modesty and strength. Ground floor, heavy rusticated stone, fortress-like, conveying stability and power. Upwards, the stonework becomes smoother and more refined. At the top, a massive projecting cornice crowns the building like a classical temple. A visual metaphor. Their power was solid and unshakable, their spirit refined and enlightened. The palace abandoned the medieval fortified tower, presenting a rational, elegant, imposing face to the city, and setting a new standard for aristocratic residences. The Medici Palace triggered a wave of competitive building among Florence's elites. Strozzi, Pitti, Rucellai. That rivalry transformed Florence's streets. Medieval neighborhoods were cleared to make way for grand residences. These new homes were organized by classical symmetry and order. The streetscape changed from narrow, chaotic lanes to broader, regular thoroughfares dominated by impressive facades. The city became a stage for private power. The most audacious act was the Vasari corridor under Duke Cosimo I. The enclosed elevated passage runs nearly a kilometer, connecting Palazzo Vecchio, Uffizi, Ponte Vecchio, Pitti Palace. It let the Duke move unseen, untouched by people below. It was a physical line between rulers and the ruled. Today the corridor remains a powerful symbol of the Medici's transformation into monarchs. The magnificent cultural flowering under Lorenzo de' Medici masked a growing fragility in the family's power and the city's finances. Lorenzo's focus on art and diplomacy came at the expense of the family business. The Medici Bank, once the bedrock of their influence, began to suffer from mismanagement and bad loans. When Lorenzo died suddenly, in 1492, he left a power vacuum that his less capable son, Piero, was unable to fill. The delicate balance of power that Lorenzo had maintained for decades quickly fell apart. The Medici's web of influence, woven over generations, began to unravel with alarming speed. The breaking point came with the invasion of Italy by the French king, Charles VIII, in 1494. Faced with the mighty French army, Piero de' Medici made a series of weak and humiliating concessions, enraging the Florentine populace. A firebrand Dominican friar, Girolamo Savonarola, seized the moment. He had long been preaching against the moral corruption and pagan decadence of the city, targeting the Medici and their circle directly. Now, his fiery sermons found a receptive audience. He declared that God was punishing Florence for its vanity. The people rose up, and the Medici were driven from the city, their palace looted, and their assets seized. The Republic was restored, but it was a republic of a very different kind. Savonarola's brief but intense rule plunged Florence into a period of extreme religious puritanism. He instituted a theocratic republic, denouncing the humanistic culture that the Medici had so carefully nurtured. His followers, known as the White Peers, patrolled the streets, enforcing moral codes and encouraging citizens to renounce worldly pleasures. This culminated in the infamous Bonfire of the Vanities in 1497, where thousands of objects deemed sinful, books, musical instruments, fine clothes, and priceless works of art, including some by Botticelli, were publicly burned in the Piazza della Signoria. It was a dramatic and violent rejection of the entire Renaissance ethos. Although Savonarola himself would eventually be excommunicated and executed, his rise and fall marked a crucial turning point. The dream of the early republic was shattered. The brief, fiery experiment with theocracy had failed, and the Medici would eventually return, not as first citizens, but as hereditary dukes. The old republican spirit was broken. The golden age of competitive patronage and civic humanism was over. The relationship between art and power in Florence was about to enter a new and more formal phase, one defined not by influence, but by outright authority. Now, let us leave the grand palaces and sunlit piazzas behind. The true soul of Florence also lives in its shadows, in the narrow arteries that twist and turn away from the main thoroughfares. These are the streets that hold the city's secrets. Let's walk down Via Lambertesca, a short and unassuming lane tucked away just behind the Uffizi Gallery. It feels a world away from the crowds. The sunlight struggles to reach the cobblestones here, and the sounds of the city are muffled between the tall, ancient walls. This street was once a hotbed of the city's powerful guilds, a place of commerce and craft, but also of conspiracy. It was here, in the medieval workshops that lined this street, that the city's artisans hammered out their masterpieces. Metalworkers, leather tanners, armorers filled the air with the sounds of their trade. But the street is also famous for a darker reason. It was the backdrop for the Ciompi Revolt of 1378, a violent uprising of the city's disenfranchised wool workers. For a brief moment, the lowest class of laborers seized control of the city government, demanding fairer representation and better wages. Their hopeful rebellion was eventually crushed, but the memory lingers in the stones of this street, a reminder that Florence's history was not only written by princes and artists, but also by the common man. Look closer at the walls. You can still see the outlines of blocked-up doorways and windows from centuries past. These architectural scars tell stories of changing fortunes. A powerful family might have owned several adjoining properties, creating internal passageways. When their fortunes fell, the properties would be sold off and the connections sealed. Each bricked-up arch is a silent testament to a family's rise or ruin. This street was also a known place for clandestine meetings. Its proximity to the seat of government in the Palazzo Vecchio made it a convenient, yet discreet location for political plotters to exchange information away from prying eyes. Walking here feels like stepping back in time. The air is thick with the ghosts of merchants haggling, of artisans at their benches, and of revolutionaries whispering in the shadows. This is not the monumental Florence of the tourist guides. This is the city's raw, unfiltered history. It's a place where the grand narrative of the Renaissance intersects with the gritty reality of daily life, full of struggle, ambition, and intrigue. Streets like Via Lambertesca show us that power in Florence was a complex game, played not only in grand council halls but also in these dark and narrow corridors. Let us emerge from the shadows and step onto one of Florence's most famous and bustling streets, the Via Calzaioli. This wide, straight avenue connects the city's religious heart, the Duomo, with its political heart, the Piazza della Signoria, Today, it is lined with elegant shops and filled with a river of tourists. It feels like the city's main public stage. But this street was also the scene of intense artistic rivalries. It was here, on the exterior of a church called Orsanmichel, that the city's guilds competed to show off their wealth and piety by commissioning statues of their patron saints. This was public art as a competitive sport. Orsanmichel was a unique building, serving as both a grain market on the ground floor and a church above. Each of the major guilds was assigned an external niche and was expected to fill it with a magnificent sculpture. The pressure to impress was immense. In the early 1400s, the Guild of Linen Weavers commissioned a young sculptor named Donatello to create a statue of Saint Mark. Donatello, ever the innovator, carved a figure that was breathtakingly realistic. He used the ancient Roman technique of contrapposto, where the figure's weight is shifted onto one leg, giving it a sense of movement and life that was revolutionary for its time. The story goes that when the guild members first saw the finished statue on the ground, they were horrified. They thought its proportions were all wrong and refused to accept it. Donatello, a famously proud and fiery character, calmly told them to let him take it back to his studio for some final adjustments. He covered the statue with a cloth, and after a couple of weeks of doing absolutely nothing to it, he presented it again. This time, however, he had it hoisted up into its high niche on the church facade. From that elevated perspective, the proportions suddenly looked perfect. The guild members were overjoyed, hailing it as a masterpiece. This small story, immortalized by a simple plaque near the original site, tells us so much about the changing status of the artist during the Renaissance. Donatello was no longer just a humble craftsman taking orders. He was an intellectual, a master of optics and perspective who understood his craft better than his patrons. He had the confidence to outsmart his employers, asserting the artist's creative authority. This small victory, played out on a busy public street, was a quiet revolution. It was a step towards the modern idea of the artist as a genius, a visionary whose judgment was to be trusted and revered. Our final secret is hidden in plain sight on the very same building, Orsanmichele. Let's look at another niche, the one belonging to the powerful Guild of Armor and Sword Makers. They commissioned Donatello to create a magnificent bronze statue of their patron, Saint George. The statue he created is a powerful image of youthful courage and determination. But the real secret is not in the statue itself, but in the marble panel below it. This panel depicts the scene of Saint George slaying the dragon. Donatello achieved another artistic breakthrough in it. He used a technique called rilievo schiacciato, or flattened relief. Instead of carving deep, high-relief figures, he created the illusion of immense depth and a distant landscape, using incredibly subtle variations in carving, some only millimeters deep. It was the first time an artist had successfully applied the new rules of linear perspective to a stone carving. It was a technical and artistic marvel, but the story of the statue itself took a strange turn. In the early 15th century, a rival guild, the Guild of Butchers, was deeply envious. So, according to a popular Florentine legend, one night, a group from the Butchers Guild supposedly stole the original St. George statue from its niche. While historians debate the absolute truth of this dramatic tale, the legend itself reveals a crucial aspect of Renaissance Florence. Art was not just beautiful, it was valuable. It was a symbol of status, power, and prestige, something worth fighting over, and even worth stealing. It shows how deeply intertwined art was with the city's social and political life. This single building, Orsanmichele, becomes a microcosm of the entire city, creating the dynamic and competitive energy that fueled the Renaissance. Our journey through Florence now draws to a close. We have soared above its iconic dome and walked its shadowed alleyways. We have stood in the grand halls of power and listened for the whispers in its quietest corners. We have seen how this city was forged in a crucible of money, ambition, genius, faith. The story of Florence is the story of the intimate and often ruthless relationship between art and power. It is a testament to how one family, the Medici, used patronage as a tool to transform their city into a monument to their own legacy, and in doing so, gave birth to a new age for Western civilization. Their influence is not just in the past, it is a living presence, etched into the very identity of the city. We began with the grand scale, but we end here, in a smaller, more intimate space. Let us imagine ourselves in the quiet courtyard of a Florentine palace. The noise of the modern city fades away, replaced by the gentle splash of a fountain. Here, surrounded by the perfect symmetry of Renaissance arches, we can feel the city's true essence. It is a sense of order imposed upon chaos, of human intellect shaping the raw material of stone and space into something beautiful and enduring. This is the ultimate lesson of Florence, that beauty can be a form of power, and power can, in the right hands, create transcendent beauty. The city's form and its memory are inseparable. The Vasari Court tells a story of ducal power. The competitive niches on the facade of Orson Michel speak of a city fueled by guild rivalries. The blocked-up doorways on Via Lambertesca whisper of fallen families. The art in the Uffizi is not just a collection of masterpieces. It is political propaganda, diplomatic maneuvering, and philosophical revolution. To walk through Florence is to read a story written over centuries. And so, as the sun sets over the Arno, casting a golden glow on the Ponte Vecchio, we are left with this final thought. Florence is more than a destination, it is a dialogue. It is a conversation between the present and the past, conducted through the universal language of art and architecture. The city still speaks to those who are willing to listen. It speaks through the confident gaze of a marble statue, through the harmonious proportions of a church facade, and through the worn cobblestones that have felt the footsteps of giants. The secrets of the Medici and the spirit of the Renaissance are not locked away in a museum. They are alive, here in the living stones of Florence.